Okay, we are at 6:30. All rise, please. Let's meet in order and we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin with roll call, noting that we are down one, I think, or is Tim online with us?
He's not, but it is open to him in case he's okay. I'll let you know.
Member Evers may be joining us remotely. Other than that, we have a full board and want to congratulate and welcome Lindsay Wood as she was just moments ago appointed to the Board of Education for Arrowhead, assuming the North Lake seat. So we welcome you and we look forward to your contributions. We were properly noticed this evening. Thank you, Kate. And we are going to jump right away into our long-range facility survey results, facility studies survey results. I'll welcome Bill from School Perceptions to present some data.
All right. Oh, I'm fine without it. Okay. All right, well, thanks for having me tonight. Again, I'm Bill Foster with School Perceptions. My job is to take you through what the survey says. So when we write this report, we organize it really in three primary areas. Everything that was in the survey itself is in the report. That's important. So as a board member, you have to scratch your head a month from now and say, what did that survey say? That's actually in the report. You will look at the demographics and then slice and dice and make sense of the data. So again, School Perceptions have been around since 2002, and now we're up over 1,000 community surveys like yours. Our mission is to help educational leaders gather, organize, and use data to make decisions. So your deadline was May 20th. As of today, we had 3,102 respondents, which gave us a response rate of 18%. The question is that good? And you're right on track at 18%. That is normal for us for this semester. Statistically speaking, we have a margin of error plus or minus just under 1.8%. Keep that number in your noggin because it's going to come in important later. When I look at this slide, I always go to the top. I want to make sure our seniors are well represented in the data, which they are. They're actually a bit overrepresented. But when it comes to voting, these seniors tend to turn out to vote, where our younger folks are 18 to 24-year-olds and they're 25 to 34-year-olds. They don't take surveys, they don't vote. So we were skewed a little bit older, but that's exactly what happens as a poll in November. So as your primary residence in the district here, we have 93% of our sample that said yes. Always laugh, we have 1% that weren't sure. And 6% that said no. And the question is, for these people taking our survey that don't live in our district, there's really primarily two groups. One is staff that work here, but they go back somewhere else, go home, and or parents who choose to open enroll into the district. In both cases, they can't vote. So we remove non-residents from the funding support question. So that's there. We did have representation from every municipality, with the village of Heartland being the largest, 24%, all the way down to the village of Sussex and the city of Pewaukee at 20%. In fact, we think this is pretty darn representative. We also asked a question in terms of which K feeder school you live in, so we have that data to cross-tab the data of the results later. 6% of our sample were employees and 49% were parents in the district. So that's the larger district, not just the Arrowhead School District. So if you remember, the survey was broken into two parts. The first being the operating referendum. The background on this was we asked folks to consider renewing and slightly expanding the operating referendum up to 1.9 million annually for the next 4 years. We then break the data into 3 mutually exclusive subgroups. You might ask, why do we do that? Because the sample is overrepresented with staff, overrepresented with parents, and underrepresented with our non-parent, non-staff. So as a board member, you have to look at each group differently. Staff are very, very important. They're really important because they talk to not only parents, but their friends and neighbors every day. If the staff is on board with what's being proposed, they're dead in the water because they have too much communication going on. But in this case, the staff is strongly supporting it. Parents are at 86%, with only 9% saying no. And 64% of our, we affectionately call the purple people, the non-parent, non-staff, supporting the proposed operating referendum. This is different from the capital referendum, and that's used to really pay for daily operations. So what we do is a calculation to kind of balance it out. So what we take the staff out completely because they represent less than 1% of the voters. We looked at the 2020 census, and we see there's about 30% of the folks that live in the district are parents of children under 18. So we gave that 86%, weighting at 30%, and then 70% of the folks either work in the district or have kids in the district. So we factored that in and came up with a 70.6% weighted average support for this proposed operational referendum. If this question were put on the ballot today, it would very likely be supported. And that's no small deal. That's important for the district. And we're here mostly concerned about capital tonight, but operational is very, very important. So then we get into the capital part of the project, which really would be to address the facility challenge. Again, this is the information that was in the survey. I talked about the challenges that you have in maintaining a 2-building configuration. And then we're at a crossroads. We either have to invest in and maintain this configuration, or we should consolidate operations under one roof. So we asked, what advice would you give the district? Or you could renovate both buildings, or you can consolidate. Again, breaking into those 3 mutually exclusive subgroups. First being staff. Staff is saying 67%, or 2/3 are saying we should consolidate. Parents are right there at 67%. And our purple people are the majority of voters. The majority of those, 47%, are leaning towards consolidating. 20% are saying renovate. The third who aren't sure need more information. So this is kind of giving us strategic direction on what to do. It's not necessarily saying I'll pay for it. It is saying, boy, it would be nice if we can move towards that consolidated configuration. So then we move to the options. And really the first one was consolidate by building a new high school. And that would cost $214.5 million. So again, looking at those groups, staff was supporting it at 70%. Parents were at 70%. And our non-parent, non-staff, majority of our voters at 33% yes, 55% no. So again, putting that weighted average to work, came up at 44.1% of the either definitely yes or probably yes for the new high school. Another option would be to consolidate by renovating, kind of picking one building and making that one great, and eventually moving away from the other building. We tested a $172.2 million plan there. There's a little less support for staff on that. 3% less support for parents. And our purple people, the non-parent, non-staff, warmed up a bit. They actually went 33 to 34, and the percent no's went from 55 down to 49. So those folks moved kind of from no into think about that one a little bit more, so you can see there's some price sensitivity to that. And then if you do the weighted average, this one came out at 43.9%, so it dropped a bit. The third option was to renovate both buildings. That would maintain the current configuration, so we gave an option out for that to be tested. That was less expensive, 153.2 million. The staff was a little less excited about that, but still, majority at 58% would support that. Parents dropped down to 56%. And our non-parent, non-staff, they're at 29% with 54%. So this is a little bit different. Really, when you do a survey, you're really testing two different variables. One is, are you going to spend my money? And then the second one is, how much of my money do you want? So here the cost went down, actually the support went down. Interesting. So when you do the weighted average calculation for the $153.2 million project, you drop down to 37.1%. All right, then we've got a couple other projects we tested. One was the swimming pool. This was configured a little bit different in that we needed a little more direction in terms of what we should do. So we needed to know, do people want to have a pool in this district? And we got the answer to that. So all three subgroups, in fact, the majority of all three subgroups would either like to update or replace. Then we tested three different options. One was to build a competition pool at 19 million, rebuild the existing pool at 11, or maintain the current pool, which would cost 7. And we came up with this. So here you could, this was one where you could choose more than one. So if you add up the percentages, you're going to see it's more than 100%. Well, yes, because people could pick option 1, 2, and 3 if they wanted. You can see that option 1 to build a new pool. I always kind of look at the purple people that were 35%, but they're leaning a little bit more towards building new, rebuilding, and then maintaining the pool. That was the least supported by all three subgroups. The glasses half empty, you go to another pool. So almost one out of 4 of the respondents of the non-parent, non-staff say, I don't want a pool. But that's 1 out of 4, so 3 out of 4 are saying, let's do something, and or I need more.
Now, were they given a price tag?
They were. Yeah.
That's why I went to.
And we showed the price tag as well as the corresponding tax rating tag. So then we went to the auditorium, and here we tested a auditorium that would have 1,000 seating with stage and fly space, and it was 24.1 million. Here again, we broke it into those 3 subgroups. The first being staff. Staff is strongly in support of this project, 80%. Parents are at 70%. And our non-parent, non-staff, they're actually leaning towards yes over the nose, 45 to 43. When you do the math, this auditorium actually has support, but you have to kind of put this in context. The 24 million compared to 143 million. So they're really reacting to 2 things. It would be nice, and it's a lot less expensive. Right? So it's really what's being proposed as well as the corresponding costs. So when I was here last, there was consensus that we wanted to test the entire project, doing everything completely new right now. And so if we do a new high school, a new competition pool, and a new auditorium, we drew the line and added up to 261.2 million. And we had support from our staff at 69%, better than 3-to-1 support. Parents were right there, 67%. But our purple people, they dropped down to 57%. So they were a little less excited about that, or a lot less excited. And that was at 43.2%. I'm just going to finish up and then we'll circle back to that data. We did have a couple overall satisfaction questions. How's the district doing in each of the following areas? You could be great, good, fair, or poor. If everybody said you're doing great, you'd be a 4. If everyone said you're doing 4, you'd be a 1. So you can't get higher than 4. You can't get lower than a 1. So you can see the breakdown by subgroup. And we use this set of questions on just about every community survey we do, which the comparison pool is well in excess of probably 300 districts. So we look at the Arrowhead average compared to other similar districts, and you're at the 91st percentile of delivering a high quality education, keeping public informed at 65, managing funds appropriately at 30. I wouldn't get too worried about that because this survey was all about operational spending and capital spending. So if you do that, it's going to tend to bias the data that, let's say you're down to 30% there, and then you're right at 49%.
I know this is based on the survey audience as a whole. My big thing is like our non-resident or non-parents. Is there like a follow-up in planning sessions just to see how we kind of rank?
Well, we can do
Or
that.
did you already do that?
No, we have the numbers. We didn't put it in, and we can go in and say for non-parent, non-staff, for that subgroup, how do you compare to?
The percentage.
We can do that. We didn't do that in this report. We combined everybody together.
Okay.
And then the all-in, these questions kind of are based on that framework, if you're familiar with that. You ended up at a 7.55, average of comparison average is 7.33, so you're in the 60-30% when you wrap it all together. So that's the report. Let me go back and take questions.
The biggest surprise from our data?
I was actually surprised there is as much support for what was proposed as there was, personally. That's why you do the survey. I think what's happened is that I think people believe there's a need to do something, but the numbers are big. They just are, but you're not alone. Every district across the state is dealing with prices that are up nearly about 46% in the last 4 years, or something like that. So the numbers have gotten bigger for every district. But I was a little surprised they were as good as they were.
I have a question. I know you asked the question about which feeder school that they live in with North Lake and Lake Country having approved referendums where there's an accident. When you looked across, was there any spikes of sub-districts that were in more favor of it, less favor of it? I was just looking at those two.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I guess, and so I can do that. I haven't done that yet. I can do that. I guess the question is, did people who are responding know those would be on the ballot? Remember when they surveyed, was that public information or was that done? Oh, I thought there were going to be 2 in November.
No, they were passed in the spring, and then we surveyed purposely right after that spring election because we do
That's right.
of the potential impact that on their choice.
No, I can break that out. I didn't look at. I didn't do anything by age or by feeder district yet. It's interesting. I think the big picture, though, is that the group we have supported on.
We're just going to ask school perception is going to be able to provide a summary in terms of a recommendation for what we should ask. I mean, I don't know if 44% is that enough to go ask.
But here's what I think. So you're as you're going down this planning road, you come to a fork, and the first fork is, do we continue to maintain our current configuration or not? Right? Because we've got some options not to, and then we've got some options to. And I think based on this data, it strikes me that the majority, right, I would say a plurality of folks, majority of staff and parents, and a plurality of non-parent, non-staff want you to move forward with a solution that consolidates. So I think at this point in time, you'd be hard pressed not to do that. I think there'd be a lot of people that say, we got to try. Okay. And so then The next question is, okay, if we're gonna try, what do we try? And we've got a continuum of options that would allow us to kind of, I'll take one site. I think there's, we tested a $173 million one. I think there's probably a range in there that you could go. You could go lower, you could go higher, or you could do the whole enchilada. And right now, my experience is as cost goes up, support typically drops. So you really, the question is really, could you pick up enough support to have one of those options pass? So I think I would tend to not go for the whole enchilada. But I also know there's people who that's exactly what we should do. But no matter what you do, I think you got to put it out and let the voters decide. Say that we believe as a board, or a majority of the board, believe this is the best thing to do. We're going to work hard. We're going to ask the voters to consider it. And until it's either approved or not approved, I think it would be difficult to move forward with Plan B. So I don't know if you can go to a Plan B. But there's enough support to give it a try. Is it going to be successful? I think it's going to be really close. Give it a try. And it really depends what happens between now and November. It's not going to be easy. 43, 40.
Have you seen success of those things in the past?
I've seen success on projects. Yes, close. As an example, we did a project for the Brown Deer School District where they had actually in their case 2 projects. One was for some academic investments and then a field house. The field house was around 45%. And they got after it and they said, we really want this. And they went out and they worked hard, and now there's a field house around here as a result of giving voters a try. So it can be done. It's not impossible. The challenge for this is a bigger, it's a bigger area. There's what 20,000 voters, I think, I saw last time. So that's a lot of people. That's not a Brown Deer. Brown Deer, you can kind of walk around the sidewalk. So it's going to be harder that way, but it's possible.
From the data that you saw, I saw, there's maybe ballpark 12 or 15% were undecided in those middles. Is that something based on your survey experience? Is that higher or is that kind of?
Yeah, the norm is about 10 to 12%.
That's your wild card though.
Yeah.
Do you persuade those people to vote that way, or are they going to be your no's?
Yeah, it's funny. We used to, we always put an undecided in, and one district in business, they said, no, people just have to have an opinion. So we didn't give them an undecided. And our phone literally rang out for people. So calls, I don't know what to do. I can't decide. And so it's always at least 10%.
Okay, so ours is nothing out of the order.
Yeah, no, they just, if you say, where do you want to eat tonight? I don't know. Can't decide. So 1 out of 10 people kind of undecided. But our experience is in the last 4 years that undecided group has moved towards no versus yes. So it's 5 years ago, we could kind of pick up a third of those undecided. Over the last couple of referendum cycles, we're seeing that not be that.
So it's not necessarily a matter of educating or getting the word out. That's just kind of.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. It could be they say, I understand it perfectly, I just don't agree. Right? That's one option. Or I didn't understand it at all. Now I understand the dilemma, and I understand now that this is probably right. So you'll have some of those people, and that people say I just don't agree. Mm-hmm. So it's not you shouldn't try, but it's hard to move those. It's hard to get audience.
Knowing that last time we surveyed in 2016, I believe the survey results that we went out to referendum on were based on a 43% positivity. And we moved the dial to 46%. Is that typical? Can you say even now in this last 12-month period, what are schools experiencing for typically? You have an all-out campaign to try and educate a targeted public. how much more simply might one anticipate moving down?
And you can move it a little bit. I did go back though. Let me, I couldn't quite remember. So in the survey, we tested a $45 million base plan. And it had 42 to 43% support. The district went out for 64.7 in the spring, and it failed at 38%. Okay. Then the plan was revised in the spring of 2017 to 36.6 million, and it failed at 46%. So what we tested was a $45 million plan. So what you changed was the cost. So the cost went down, support went up. So I don't know if we can draw a direct correlation like that. But to answer your question, you can, you will pick up, you probably will pick up some. I just didn't know how entrenched those undecided are or how informed they are. You have to work hard for it.
So my vague recollection of 2016 that that just, I'm sure I'm going to misquote anything that you say, so it's the best recollection. But it seemed like the thought that was shared at that time was that if you're at 47 and above, that you have a fighting chance of dragging it across the finish. And once you're below 47%, then you're way below 50 and never succeeding. Sound about right?
I think that's about right. It's going to be much, much tougher. But again, you go back to the question, are we going to give the community a chance at this or not? I think that's the decision the board has to make.
Is there anything we can extrapolate out of the 80% support for the operation referendum?
It was interesting. It was that high, given that it barely passed the first time. I think the takeaway there now is it's a renewal as opposed to something new. And then the corresponding new tax impact was $2 instead of what it was the first time. So I think people have bought in. I think it's 86% of the districts in the state either are pursuing an operation. So I think people now are understanding that that's necessary, and that yours is necessary. So that was pretty amazing support. That's probably one of the higher I've seen in our surveys over the spring. That's way up there, 70+%. But I think it's really people reacting to, okay, $2, I can afford that. That's not so bad.
How often do you see support above the 50% in your surveys in general for something that's significant, like what we're looking at? Maybe not to the degree of what we're looking at, but that's somewhat significant.
You see it. It's really, it all comes down to that tax impact. That's the most, what is it going to cost me?
Sure.
That's the most important thing. So and your tax impacts are larger, right? So that's really what people are reacting to. Are there? I have a board meeting next Monday night for the Pima School District, and their tax impacts are north of $300. They actually have about 54% for their proposed plan, but they've got a really, 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 really old 1920 building, and they're gonna go for it. So it happens, but it's really hard.
So what I'm understanding from just the different questions that have been asked is when it's above 50 or closer to the high 40s, there's a pretty good fighting chance you're going to be successful.
Got a good chance. Yeah.
Again, you have the margin of error with the survey.
You got the margin of
plus
error
or minus 2%.
Under 2%. It's so the data is predictive 94% of the time in this test.
Do you have any data, Bill, that sheds some light on the success rate of a second referendum request when the first referendum request is certainly the larger of the two, and the second referendum request goes out with a lesser amount, but intended for the same purpose?
So on the same ballot or the second ballot?
No, one would be separate, say, a November ballot that would position a certain amount. Doesn't pass, you reposition for April, ask a lesser amount on a second referendum. Any data that suggests a certain level of success on.
No, I mean, and I think the one thing I've learned is you can't go out for the same thing. Everybody goes out for the same thing. There's a lot less support for the same thing. So you have to revise the plan. If you revise the plan, then many times there is success. Because people say, okay, we tried that, it didn't work. Well, there's a new plan. We still understand there's a need here, and then there's support for that. It's a little, it's rushed to get it done in 6 months, but as people do it, it is successful.
We got our success rate, or our vote when we did that in 2016, 2017. So we went out. Price was 15 million,
64.7.
64.7, then it dropped down to 30 something. 36.6. So we dropped it, the support went down, but from 40, almost 46% down. That's feel that was, why did you go?
It was
the
Yeah,
high
it was
amount?
Yeah, the first one was at 38%, the second one at 46. So,
Other way around. I'm looking at it right now.
yeah, what's that?
That's what this is.
Yeah, and we looked at it.
64,900 for 10.9 again.
Adam, do you know what we asked? I know we asked the less the dollar amount, but was there certain things that we said, okay, we're not including
Yeah, that's
this feature?
Full auditorium, right?
Yeah,
That was
full
64.
auditorium.
We added full
Was it
auditorium.
more than auditorium?
This is what. Numbers are right.
No, scroll down.
Up here, it's 36 million. Go for the numbers in there.
That was 38%.
Yep.
That was for.
So it went from 46 to 38 when it dropped to 30 million. And the first one at 64 million. At a 46% yes, and then 33%.
Oh, so the spring was.
Yep.
You went for this one first.
No, that's the recurring that failed. 64.7 went first.
Yeah, that one went first. The 64 lost, right?
At a 46% rate.
Yeah, okay. So,
So it got crushed when you cut it in half.
yeah, so what that probably was, is frustration. You didn't listen to us the first time, now we're mad.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna say no.
Like, yeah, you didn't need it.
Right.
That to me was one of the biggest questions and challenges of our day is how close the 261.2 is to 175. Weren't they almost the same?
The support level, yeah.
They're both around 43, 44%.
Yeah, the question is if, would it be successful?
They're so close. So
Yes.
what do you do?
And I think they would, yeah.
And so a lot of people told us, we want everything new. It's never going to be cheaper. This is it's the most cost effective thing to do and do it now because costs are only going to go up. So many people said that that's what they wanted. You don't give them the chance, what happens to support next time? That's one of the weird things that I'm grappling with is like, if you don't give that part of the community a chance to get that passed, they may not support the next one because they're angry that they didn't get that chance. Whatever that next one may be, hard to say what that. And then the other weird dilemma is, let's say you go for 175 and it gets passed, you're like, could we've got the 261, would that have maybe passed? You'll never know. We've got some fun to grapple with at the workshop next week.
So, Bill, how often do you ask a question on other surveys that's the what advice would you give the district question, where you ask that? We've gotten data back that from a large segment of our community that suggests that a complete 1/3 of people don't have enough information. They know they don't have enough information. Is that typical to find that, and is that workable somehow?
Yeah, I think, but there's really a nuanced answer in that might be code for I don't want to, I looked ahead, I don't want to spend that much money, so I'm saying, but I'd like to do it. Is there a way to do it cheaper? So you really got two variables. One is should we consolidate? The other is how much will it cost? They're not sure about the cost. They jump over to the other side. So I think that's what you're thinking out there.
Or they jump to don't consolidate.
Or they jump to, or they're there.
Seemed they had that option, didn't they?
They did.
Yes.
Undecideds are always tricky.
We also asked the an optional open response comment that they could share their
Yep.
concerns or endorsements.
Yeah.
Is there anything from that, or, and this is something maybe on the wish list for Tuesday's
Yeah.
session of like, okay, of those that are undecided, what did they say in that follow up then?
Yeah, and we can do I did a high level kind of analysis, and it's kind of exactly what you think. There was probably number one was financial concerns and tax burden, first and foremost. Some questions about enrollment trends and demographics. People wanting more information about where are we heading, what are we going to do. So that might be some more information you want. Recurring theme about did we maintain these buildings the way we should have? That was out there. A theme was consolidation versus renovation. Is there a way to consolidate with other folks to spread out some costs? Big theme was safety and security. That's really important. That we need a solution that improves the safety and security of our schools. A lot of people talk about the educational impact. We need to do something. Education we provide. And I think questions about just how will all these funds be managed, I guess. It's kind of the sub-theme. Those are the big ones, and we can do an in-depth comment analysis, but it's probably all the people you talk to. You kind of hear the exact same things. So there was nothing new, surprising, I guess.
I was just thinking of those comments is that something we can build in our FAQs on their website.
Yeah, and that's a good guess. Yeah, I need to know more, like demographics. Yeah, tell me about what homes doing, homes, whatever.
I think that comment about, or question, whether or not, the schools or facilities have been maintained to the best of everyone's ability over the years. I think that kind of speaks to maybe someone's lack of information. Because clearly through the different, public meetings and things, everything that's been shared through Mr. Rose, I mean, really every B&G person that gone over and said, we have pretty much milked out as much as we possibly can with a lot of the facilities.
A big part of the failed 2016 referendum would have upgraded all these major building systems. So if you don't do it then, you're not going to get any younger in the next 8 years. So now they're really 8 years older. So
That's what they cost to replace now.
Right. I find it a little disheartening because the election is coming up, and I think a lot of people are feeling really uncertain now with inflation and their financial standings. Is that playing into this in a big way, do you think? And maybe after the election, would it be better? I don't know if we would wait to do a referendum next year after you see what happens in November. Would that help in any way?
Typically the prevailing wisdom, and it will be a interesting time, right? Over the next till November. But I think most districts want to go out when most of the voters will come out, get a representative. So that's kind of most districts are doing that. Does it help? It might help some people, but what it won't help is these guys who have to say what the numbers will be, because I suspect they'll come back and say, we have to wait another year to begin construction. We're going to have to tack another 3, 4, 5%, and 4% of million is another $8. So that's the downside of waiting. You know more, but it will have to be possible.
Or maybe go in April.
You could. You do not have a November in the odd years. So there's not a gubernatorial presidential in odd years. So you only would have You can't hold a special election.
Certainly something the board can talk about at the workshop. The data on success rates would show that the November big elections tend to have great success when there are more votes.
You'll definitely have an operating on the ballot. That's for sure. You're limited to 2 questions per calendar year, so you only have 1 question. Whereas next year you could have approval or something else. You can have questions.
Anything else for Bill Foster? Thank you so much.
Well, what are the financing options? I mean, I see, 4.25%. Bids are higher now generally over 20 years. What if you amortize that for 30 or 40 years or 50 years? The building's likely about 50 years.
Well, I'm not a survey guy, I'm not a financial man.
Yeah, well, I was
Right,
just wondering if it could be manipulated to reduce
You have
some
some,
yearly costs.
you have some latitude, but I think the bond, particularly if it's by a 20-year bond, you can't do a 30-year. See if they got a rich uncle.
Someone donated $500,000 for a lot of buck block. Okay.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Bill. Okay, next up is Superintendent Carter with the 2024-25 school board meeting schedule.
Before you this evening, you've got the dates that we've projected out for next year. Since July will begin the new fiscal year. We want to get those on the books as quickly as we can. Pretty much the same type of schedule as we've done this year, and I think for many years. Any times where there was a noticeable conflict, we would try to avoid scheduling a meeting on a holiday, that sort of thing. So we typically went to the next week, and we tried to run by committee with everybody who chairs the committee. So this should reflect all the feedback that we've received, and the board can approve this evening, so we can get it on everybody's calendars for next year.
So the board has had the opportunity to take a look at this. Looking for a motion to approve the 24-25 school board meeting dates schedule. I'll second. Any further discussion?
And of course, the date can always be changed if there was some reason to change something. Just put up that board.
Okay. All in favor of approving board meeting dates, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is public comment.
There are nobody sign-ups.
Okay, no signups. With the board's approval, I would open it up if anyone has any last minute comments.
I have some questions. I was concerned.
Sir, yeah, step up to the microphone and just to, I'll offer as a, just a,
I was concerned that there aren't windows in a lot of the classrooms. Is that true? I mean,
yes.
in the north especially. Yeah, well, that's, is it true that with windows, people tend to learn better? I mean, they're studying. Yeah. I mean, that's if you build a new building, maybe you should try to put on like a standing seam metal roof that wouldn't have to be replaced for 50 years, perhaps, instead of a flat roof, rubber roof after be replaced every 20 years, something like that.
We'll do the best possible with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the lowest cost. And also the auditorium capacity, is that too small? I mean,
We can't even put a class that's smaller than one.
well, I know it's too small, but I mean, the new one, 1,000 seats, is that big enough?
It's what we think is tolerable.
Yeah.
Love that 2,000, we just don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to have a graduation. My son just graduated outside, which I mean, when I graduated, it was inside my school. It's a big school. So I don't know, I mean, don't be penny wise, fool, you know? You know, I
With the
mean,
challenges we have,
yeah, I know.
we think we're pushing to.
And I'm like, what will the school if you do it? You have an auto shop. It will have an auto shop. My son had a comment today. He didn't come here, just graduated. He said, he spends too much money on athletics. And that was his comment, you know. And so, you know, should we have a football program that damages the brains of these kids? You know, this is something, you know. But another thing, you know, a lot of people, I mean, it would increase my taxes, $1,000 a year, the whole thing probably. And, you know, I know a lot of people, retired men or others, they don't have $1,000 put in the water for their house. You know, so that's a consideration. That's up. But it may be more cost effective than building.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. You know, the one assurance I can give you is that the board has tried to be extremely sensitive to certainly, you know, some of the concerns that you've raised already and many, many others. And will continue to be as we delve in deeper next week at a workshop. Absolutely, please.
Thank you. So I would just encourage you as you go into workshop to consider, I mean, it looked like the support was pretty similar to consolidate to one building versus build new. To consider the disruption that consolidating to one building. Yeah, I imagine that's a much longer construction time and is very disruptive. As a parent who's going to have a freshman in 2 years, this entire high school experience could be taken out with this disruption. So I think that's an important thing to consider for everyone.
Absolutely.
We talk about it in our presentation, so that'll be a part of what we'll do.
Absolutely. Well, and when we arrive at the referendum, we're in that direction. Using your voice to have your neighbors and other members of the community understand that concern alone. We'd appreciate your help with that. Anyone else? Okay. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda contains the May 8th, 2024 regular Board of Education minutes, the bill payments report, the donations, personnel report, and actually those 4 items. And I'd like to ask Member Angeli if she wouldn't mind going through the donations this evening. It's nice to acknowledge it.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Schultz. We have one for this evening, and that donation came in as of May 31st of this year from Delafield Lions Club, and the donation came to the Tech Ed program for eye protection in the amount of $1,600. So we'd like to thank the Delafield Lions Club very much for that donation.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very appreciative. Okay. Does any member request pulling anything out of the consent agenda for specific discussion? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the 4 items contained in the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to curriculum committee reports. I'll turn it over to Board Member Heather.
Thank you, President Schubert. We had a meeting on May 16th and we discussed a few things. First item up was a JSA trip to Washington, D.C. for February of 2025. That's Junior States of America, if I'm not mistaken. That's an annual trip to the National JSA Convention. So they do that yearly. And that is an item that we will be voting on later. We also discussed the Education for Employment Plan. Sue, if you want to do that.
Sure, the employment plan is linked in the agenda this evening, and you do have to take formal action on the plan. as required by law and policy. So at the curriculum committee meeting, we reviewed the aspects of the plan, which include local, regional, and state labor market needs, and the ways Arrowhead looks at those needs determining CTE programs. We also identified various ways that we help students get ready for career readiness in their post-secondary planning. We reviewed the academic and career plan process and some of the statistics that we have related to not just CTE participation, but what our students tell us they want to do and want to participate in terms of a career after high school. And all those statistics are linked in the plan. We linked some very important success stories in the plan as well, related to a WASB article that was highlighted our manufacturing program. We had a Fox 6 News story this year that celebrated our tech ed program, and we were the tech and engineering department of the year, if you haven't heard, so that's exciting. Yes, congratulations to them. So as we look at post-secondary planning, we highlighted some specific programs in the plan that are important for our students to get authentic career-based learning experiences, things from participating in dual credit, youth apprenticeship programs, and understanding of our career pathways, which are continue to be built, where we rely very heavily on our partnerships with business. Talked about professional development and family engagement as well, and those are linked in the plan, and how we support individual students with their academic and career planning, and highlighted those programs in the plan as well. So on a regular basis, the board has to take formalized action on that.
We also reviewed the textbooks adopted by Arrowhead, and I think we were moving that to policy procedure and policy, and that'll be a future discussion. Nothing was really settled in our curriculum meeting. Then Sue spoke about the reading improvement efforts. Want to summarize that?
Yes, so as part of our summer planning, we're honing in on shaping our assessments, aligning our assessments among our English 9 team, our English 10 curriculum team, and our new English 11 curricular team. And our reading specialist, known as Ignego, will be working to start with our English 9 team and just looking at alignment of standards, strategies for instruction, and assessment. We will also be, as part of next week's teaching and learning team time and some professional learning time, we're going to learn about the faculty are going to be learning about Mastery Connect, which is a data system that will help us track the progress of our students by standard, and it connects to the Canvas program. So that's some of the more recent efforts to make those improvements in literacy.
We also discussed the block scheduling, which seems to be coming along nicely. The master schedule is nearly complete, and having right? Less conflict than before, too, correct?
20%.
Okay. So that's in the works and sounds real good. For professional development in summer, you were going to be working with Bill Banks, who you said was the guru of block scheduling. So
he's going to continue to work with our Arrowhead faculty as we make the transition to block schedule. We had our first summer professional learning yesterday. So teachers came back voluntarily to learn the participation techniques for increasing engagements and getting into the learning. Great morning, very great feedback from those participated. I will be duplicating that professional development on July 11th and helping teachers make their plans for preparation for teaching in an 85-minute block, and a record amount of teachers working over the summer as well, developing curriculum and scope and sequence documents, reworking that. And I'll highlight that, Brendan. I think you asked for more of a detailed professional development plan, so that's on our June 20th curriculum. So you can see what that's like in more detail. Thank you.
it sounds like, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how was attendance at the voluntary session?
We had 24 people yesterday, and we'll have another 20 some in July, and dozens and dozens of teachers working on curriculum. So remembering about half our staff have taught. block as well. So that represents a good portion of the faculty who haven't had a lot of experience in the block who are participating in the session.
Yeah, it sounds like it's coming around nicely and I'm kind of excited about it.
Teachers, we've definitely turned a corner with teachers. We're going to need to continue to work and turn that same corner with our students who have not yet experienced the block schedule, who are anxious. So that'll be a next part of this stuff. So implementation of the block is getting them to understand the benefits.
Then the last item that we spoke about was Act 95, which is the required for student ranking now. Ranking will be required. And do you have anything to add on that, or so project in the works?
We will have our first class for the class of 2025 rank information being sent to juniors shortly. Grades are just due on Tuesday, and so we'll make sure transcripts are ready. We'll be alerting our first class for the Wisconsin guarantee who will qualify in the top 5% for guaranteed admission to Madison and who qualifies for guaranteed admission to the other UWs at the top 10%. So that information will be given to students.
So our next meeting is set for June 20th, coming up at 6:45. So I hope you'll plan on attending.
Yes. Super. Thank you both. So we have two action items that are contained in the curriculum committee report. The first of which is the JSA trip to Washington, D.C. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion for approval of that trip.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the JSA trip to Washington, D.C., say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries.
Cheers, aye.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, the second item is the Education for Employment Plan. So I'm looking for a motion to approve. Plan.
I will make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the Education for Employment Plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up would typically be our Finance and Legislation Committee report. Knowing that we've kind of in a holding pattern as we've been progressing through all of the referendum planning and survey feedback and presentation this evening. We haven't had a meeting to report on, but I know Brandon's got one. I'm sorry, chairman. Our new chairman of finance has one in the planning phase, right?
Yes, 3rd of July. So we're doing it Monday.
Okay, thank you. From there, we'll move to buildings and grounds with Chairperson Bedford.
Thanks, Kim. We had a buildings and grounds meeting on May 21st, and Jeff talked about the game plan for using up the funds for the 2020 referendum projects that are happening. Upcoming projects included the water main repairs, some priority rooftop units, and then the North Campus main service switchboard in the phase 1 parking lot E. We also discussed projects that were needed, but were not funded at this time. Bill King, our director of buildings and grounds, also discussed the potential updates of Arrowhead Drive. And the administration is in discussions with the town board regarding. And then we also talked about replacing a couple boilers to make the facilities more efficient, replacing the switch gears at North Campus. This it will be held the week of July 22nd with a 75% power shutdown for approximately. And then we just also talked about the surveys presented at the June meeting. Then, other than that, that was all discussed at the meeting. Anything else to add to?
No, I mean, just with the last referendum, some of those projects are going to be put on hold until we make some decisions about what our next referendum planning really looks like. So that's, we likely won't even get those projects into the next fiscal year because of the ramp up time it takes to get them going. But we'll hold the dollars aside for them at some point in time. So next week we'll learn more.
How are the discussions with the town of Merton to adopt additional roadways going?
I haven't been talking, I haven't, Bill talked with them just the one time before the.
Yeah, they're not willing to adopt additional roadways to have some free maintenance on that might go through Arrowhead in different directions.
You heard that?
No, I just, oh, sorry, tongue in cheek.
I haven't spoken with them myself, so I don't know.
Any updates on the electrical panel that we're still waiting? That could be.
Everything's on schedule as of now. So I mean, that was the big holdup, is when could we get the equipment? They were able to commit to a week earlier than they had originally. So we're still on schedule to have the shutdown happen at the best possible time for the summer.
I don't know why I thought that was actually.
It's on the order right now.
It's on order. It's on its way, assuming they build it in time. Should be. We should. Yeah, we've been waiting for a long time on it.
Okay.
It was supposed to happen initially, last summer. We're trying to get it, and that's going to get equipment order. So just that kind of lead time on some of that stuff.
And then also, we're just looking at having a meeting. I think it's around June 27th.
Okay.
27th. That's my update for BG.
Chairman Benneker. Unfortunately, Chairman Langer, who chairs our personnel committee, took illness, stepped out. So I will offer up a report in his absence. In brief, a meeting was held on May 20th, and Superintendent Carter presented the 2024-25 Educator Handbook and Support Staff Handbook. Board members were asked to review the handbooks prior to the June meeting and provided input, questions which were answered for us. The committee reviewed the board vacancy appointment procedure. Again, thank goodness, we've got all those things worked out for vacancy procedure because we've got that spot filled this evening. In general, that's what was covered on page 1. There were 2 action items then arising out of the personnel committee. First being action on support staff handbook. So at this point, I would call for a motion to approve the support staff handbook as written. I'll make a motion to approve. A second. Is there any further discussion on the handbook? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the support staff handbook carries. The second motion that I'm looking for is on the 2024-25 support staff compensation proposal. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there anything, Jeff, that you feel needs to be reviewed further on this?
I can just give a brief summary. It's a 4.12% increase over last year's wages. That's CPI this year. There's a group of support staff, really our instructional and office support staff that are school year only. In the new handbook, we're removing 8 holidays from their regular pay. So we took those dollars that those holidays would have cost, put it onto the salary wage schedule. So they'll actually see a 7% increase. It'll help us
attract and retain help, we believe, by having a high hourly rate that we will no longer pay holidays on the school year home staff.
Thank you for that. So, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will turn it over to our Chairman Ferris for policy.
Thank you, Madam President. So we had our meeting on June 5th and huge call out to not only Conrad and Richard to get us to this spot as quickly as we did, but also to the entire board to do the deep dive, looking into all of our policies as we're moving over to Neola. We all can see what a benefit this is going to be, and legally it's going to be even more defensible, easier to search. Everything about it's going to be a big positive. We on the 5th we went through the 6,000, 7,000s, 8,000s. So that's finance, property, and operations. That's here tonight for discussion and action for approval. That went really well. We got through absolutely everything. Anything you need to comment about that with regards to that, Conrad?
Just to add that with the approval of those 3 series, we would be ready to go July 1 with all of our policies switched over to Neola. So echo your appreciation. Everybody's worked on it. Dave also especially.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dave. So we have those on the table tonight for discussion and action. We do have a few policies that will be re-reviewed at a subsequent meeting, but perhaps we should go through the discussion and action first on those 3 series. Thank you.
You know what? I think what we'll do is we will end up adopting the entire book of policies at one time.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and address any pull-outs that you want.
Okay. Okay. So we'll be approving, as our president said, we'll be approving the entire list, or the entire group of policies. The three policies that we'll be looking at in the next meeting, pulled out for additional discussion, is 2420, or I'm sorry, 2240, 2416, and 2522. And then address your.
Yeah, I asked that we pull 2240 out based on some feedback from public and concerns that I had, and thinking about this a bit more, what the policy actually is. It's in the classroom, it's controversial topics, and whether or not a teacher can insert their own viewpoint, as long as they make it clear to a student that it is their own viewpoint on certain things, or whether they cannot. The original way we were going was that a teacher could not express their viewpoints at all. And in thinking about that, I would like to revisit it. So, and give everyone a chance to talk about it.
We have three policies that'll need additional deep diving, but the agenda for the evening is to adopt all policies currently as written, and then we'll forward with our typical path.
I'm sorry.
Numbers, yeah, 2240, 2416, and 25 and 22. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Conrad, but I think 25, 22, your team was coming forward with an idea on how that might look. That one, 25, 22, I don't have the name right off there. I just have the number, I'm sorry. So,
We said we're doing that. Yes, we are.
okay.
Let me make sure I know which one to go. 22 what now?
25,
25,
22.
22.
Oh, library meetings. That can be able to tackle that.
See, this is a testament to the ease with which we use those Neola policies, right? Right here, right before us. This is impressive.
Absolutely.
I want to thank the board as well, and our chairman for continuing to promote all this Conrad and Richard were amazing with the ongoing amount of questions and diligence and responses back to the board. This was a big ask. It was a big lift. And we appreciate everyone, including Kate, because this was a huge lift for her as well. At the time when the last stuff happened. So very much appreciate everyone's participation on this. So given that, if we're ready to approve, I would look for then a motion to adopt all of the Neola policies.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the adoption, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
And our next meeting is July 2nd.
Oh, we moved that one.
Oh, why not? Thank you.
Please don't come on this.
Chairman Ferris. Other reports, WASB, I will just offer up that there is the upcoming Summer Learning Symposium scheduled for July 12th and 13th at the Hyatt Regency in Green Bay. Select sessions include what can you learn from your students, ransomware attacks do occur, what you should do before it happens, AI and policy implications, cyber risk exercise, strengthening your school's preparedness, school finance demystified, what every board member needs to know in the referendum.
Mr. Gross.
We are already pretty well.
He doesn't want it to.
In fact,
He likes people being
He likes
mystified.
it to be mystified.
Kate has shared that the registration fee for the seminar in its entirety is $275 per member, and that the one-day rate is $175. So for those of you intending to go to Green Bay for the conference in July, time to register up. Other than that, CISA, I don't know, Member Benecker, do you have anything to report there?
They had their annual meeting on May 21st, so I was there for that. It was a pretty quick meeting, and it's just announcing of the highlights were just the election of the new board members. Nothing too exciting.
Then they adjourn to next year, that's it.
It's basically a 45-minute meeting, and well, you can see that he's why they want the board, and then we vote. It's interesting because it's like when it's, I represent Arrowhead, but then we have each of the feeder schools, but we have one vote. So all of us get together, it's like, okay, how are we going to vote for this? So and represent, so it was like representatives of Stone Bank, Lakeshore, I think Richmond, between us wanted to figure out. Unique thing.
Right?
Yeah. You guys agreed right away, right off the bat?
We agreed right away.
Camaraderie, yeah.
Just to let you know, this is up for next year. Want to join? Just doing that vote.
What is different? He's a gift. We got that covered in cheese.
I am not the new member.
Good stuff.
That was part of the deal.
Yep. Welcome to my world. Thank you for that. New business. I think anyone would like to add to this evening? Future agenda items.
It's not necessarily new business per se, but Tim Langer mentioned to me at the interview this evening, the possibility of moving meetings back to the boardroom. So that's something maybe we'll talk and decide July fiscal year. Avoid all this
Yes.
rigmarole. It might be something, so we'll just communicate that out. I'll just board up to communicate, but keep your eyes on those agendas because I have other people who expressed it to me too, the interest in potentially doing me back in that work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then would, if there's going to be a big discussion over a thing, then just
Always.
temporarily
Yep, I'll move back there.
or something.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Business or future? Okay. If not, we are pursuant to state statute 19.851 BC. The board will move into closed session. So I'm looking for a motion to move into closed. I'll make a motion to move into closed session.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we need a roll call vote for that. And we just go down the line and
Aye.
just. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye. Is Tim still on?
He's on there, but I'm not sure that he'll be going to see.
Thank you, everyone.
Stick around for a minute. I'd like to just say a quick prayer for the school. Lord Jesus, we ask you to bless the school, the ground that sits on, the teachers that teach in it, the administration that run it, and all who enter it. We ask you to send down your angels to protect all of these. We also ask you to help all of us to see each other with your eyes rather than with our own. We pray for this, Jesus, in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you.